there is a thing, oh yes, I never really noticed that, and it's so tiny, so small, so not stitches, it looks like stitches, but really it is edges, they basically edged it, like on monocles, glass monocles, or it's serrated, there, just below it, before it, they basically did that so that the leather would bulge up, and then do that nice little thing, as if it was sewn. And it probably helps keeping it onto the head, on top of that also helping. And what they did, which is probably a little bit, well, probably the same, you know, probably as expensive or as good. It's slightly different manner of doing it. But a more obvious way, it does not really look like a stitch, it's simply, they carved it in, they sort of carved that sort of welt, not welt, what is it called, that sort of channel into the leather. This is not a stitch. So again, it would help keep the hat onto the head. Especially if one has a lot of hair like me, you know, the more hair one has got, the more, especially that my hair is not, it is curly, but it does not feel like kinky hair at all. You know, it feels like very fragile, albino people's type of hair, so basically very soft, my hair is very weak quality, so it by being so soft and thin, I suppose it's worse for keeping a hat on, because then it's the leather slides, you know, the leather, it slips basically. Yeah. But yes, on some hats, especially I suppose more until 1910, and perhaps for cheaper hats probably, because they were meant to be worn very lightly anyhow, they would actually glue, this is, I know this from them, they would have a very thin sweat band, thinner leather than that, and glue it simply. No stitching, perhaps there was a stitching at the end, for the highest quality of these lower quality ones, just to people think there's a stitch, or probably no stitching at all. But that is relatively dense and a very good quality sweatband. Before wearing it, I just desire to share. If I move it a bit, see. This is where to put. Oh, I see the gossamer perfectly there. See, so there's the merino I'm touching. Let me see. Yeah, not even the, yeah, I guess the merino, or the merino that they covered the gossamer right until there, right until this is the gossamer, and then the lining starts. The lining is simply ironed onto the hat with no stitching, probably no gluing. I don't want to touch it and fiddle with it too much and then undo the work. And especially since the lining is so fragile material. It is literally holding through the air space. It is simply in a, not really placed there, but it simply holds, because it is so tightly pulled and it's so light. But so it seems like, and probably is, that any ever so slight pressure onto it will create a small hole, and also it cannot be patterned so light and file like a fabric. File as in F-A-I-L-L-E. And also the leather is dense and yet very supple, and this is the underside of the leather. So this is such a high. This is so beautiful and beautiful at the touch, a sweatband. And I love that sweatband. You know, these old hats. Sweatband are so good. So good. Thin and yet sturdy. It's not so thin. And yet so comfortable, and it grips onto, because it is a natural leather that has probably been, you know, vegetable based dye. It still has all the true leather skin, really, indentations and all, the texture, which helps, and yet it looks so smooth from the least distance. It looks like it does not have it, but if one actually observes on it, and these little pores help to keep it onto the head, you know, by adhering to anything, especially mouth skin, since it is a skin, and a dead skin, which is the leather contact. in contact with my own living skin. It is hard to compare it to that leather, which is so used up upon the much older hat. If anything, this one has less texture, but also this one has been practically laminated in at least my hair cream, because I used to wear oil and then in gray and tie. And I used to wear that oil and things. But if anything, it has a bit less texture. And probably perhaps the weather, because it was worn quite a bit, also had hair cream back in the 19th century when it was worn. Or whenever it was the last time it was worn. And I'm trying to talk about the details. Also, as one may see, when the flatter the surface, the more any imperfection will show. So all these little dents there show, and it will not be worth repelling them, because one would have to remove all the inside. So even if I was to wear that hat, I will not repel it every time there's a small dent. One has to wait for there to be a big one. But obviously the shimmy itself is much nicer, and unless one goes up close, one does not really see those ever so slight little dents. They happen with any ever so slight shock, like this type of shock. So basically what happens is, because they're relatively high, one is not careful enough, or things, for example, what happened many times is I would bend. I had just come back from a walk and I wanted to get something in the fridge, and I would bend. And as I bent, I would hit the fridge, So, but these hats are very fragile, and this happened, and they were not perfect, except for very rich people. Nothing ever was perfect, so just enjoy them, and obviously if one is in a public place, especially a crowded place, always keep the hat on your head. This is the best manner to ensure that at least it does not get completely crashed, and it cannot really be repaired. But obviously it will get some dents, except if one is a level 725 OCD. So it is still a bit tight. It probably has to conform to my head to a certain degree. So I don't really know what else is worth talking about in the review of that hat. It is not an original from the 1890s. It is not exactly like an original, and obviously far from there, but I'm doing what I can. Should I talk more? I have about 2 more minutes before I have to change video. So yes, it all depends on the fit one desires, and the actual head shape, and the climate one lives in, and what one does with one's hat. Again, this is very light, so because it is so light and British, I guess this is also made with this 4 plies of glass hammer. That is 4 plies of glass hammer for the brim. And then 1 ply for the entire crown. Both of these hats are actually very light, much lighter than this, although this has lost a lot of felt. This has literally become a piece of junk now. I mistreated it so much and wore it so much. So I'm glad to let go of it. It was also too large. This is also the thing. Last month I had been compelled to wear this hat. I explained why. And it's actually way too large. It kept falling off my head. Obviously this is a modern piece of humbug, so I don't really care. It kept falling off my head. So essentially, because I was wearing it until today, I'm still wearing it today. Every time I'm out and about, essentially I now feel like this is too tight, almost. But actually this is the right size I was probably seeking. And also on top of that, this is a softer hat, and it became more softer, and I tried removing all the dirt, and all I ended up doing was making a hole. The stains are still there. I even tried with white spirit, so basically it became more floppy and lost a lot of felt. So it is quite floppy now, whereas this is very stiff, although much lighter. So, because I'm used to this, there will be a time when it will feel too small, but it's probably the best I can get after getting something made for my actual head shape by a competing hat, but I obviously do not desire to do that. So, the only genuine problem, I would say, is the time period, and thus the styling this hat is, and second, the making.